Yo guys, how's it going? My name's Umzi and welcome back to another video. This time around I'm starting a brand new series because you guys know my whole how to carry with a specific lane series is completely over. I will be doing a brand new version for jungle because the jungle has changed and will change in the future. So every time the jungle does change, I will be doing a video based on that because now, as you guys can see, there's no longer a third camp in the red side. And yeah, timings have changed a little bit. And also, I believe you don't get level 2 straight away after completing red buff. But yeah, so the first tip this whole video is just going to be based completely on how to play Grux specifically in the jungle. So my Grux in the off lane is completely different, obviously. Grux in the jungle is completely different. My whole guide for this video is going to be how to play Grux specifically in the jungle. One tip I can give you as an overall jungler, not just Grux, is that ward that I placed next to Prime is to prevent invades from that side. Normally, it would be good if your Kallari or your offlaner would put a ward next to their lane to stop like the whole overall gank. But yeah, after you place down that ward, you can just pick up a Rad Pulse. Rad Pulse. Rad Pulses are very, very good because they help you with ganks. Because if the enemy has a ward in your lane, you can just use the Rad Pulse to get rid of the ward. I recommend junglers and supports to be the only people to be using Rad Pulse unless you're against like a Kallari in the offlane, then the offlaner could use it as well. But yeah, as you guys can see here, the enemy Grux ends up coming to our jungle and tries to 1v1 my Kallari, so we're just gonna like destroy him. And so honestly, I don't know why this Grux did this. Originally we thought maybe the Grux only saw Kallari and thought Kallari was the only one doing red buff, so that's why he went in. But yeah, so like I was saying, I used my affliction on red buff, and as you guys can see, I didn't get level 2 straight away. However, you now get level 2 after you complete the first minion on your first camp, other than red buff. Now, to get level 3, you have to get the third camp, or technically second white camp, this camp that I'm about to get now. If you get this camp, it gives you level 3 instantly, so you can get level 3 from completing one whole side of your jungle, whether that's blue or whether that's red. Now, as Grux, specifically because this guide is based on Grux, I highly recommend maxing his right click. His right click is his cleave, and it does damage, and it also has a bleed effect and trauma effect. Trauma alone is very, very good if you're against someone like a Chimera or someone that does regen. Now, over here, I tried to go in for a gank in mid. I think it is successful, yeah, because the enemy mid laner didn't have any wards. He tried to basically use his stun on me. But as Grux, your best combo that you can do is use your E and your Q and alternate between them so that you don't end up wasting any CC time. So as you guys can see here, I see a gank opportunity on right lane because I know he hasn't hit level 3 yet because he died at level 1. So I tell my Kallari to go all in, and we end up getting this kill as well. And always when you're versing a Grux, I didn't end up doing it here, but when you're versing a Grux, you always want to be standing in their line of path when you're ganking them because they can obviously just dash away. So if they hit you in their dash, they stop. So you can just use that and keep them with you. Now at this point, I heard the steal in this camp, so I overall rotated to this side and tried to somewhat counter jungle, but also somewhat potentially get a kill. My Kallari also ended up rotating through his tower, so he did end up taking a bit of damage, even though I think there were minions in there. Overall, we just ended up trying to get the steal. This wasn't the smartest choice from both of us, me and Kallari, purely because the enemy mid laner has gone missing and the enemy Grux is obviously respawning, plus they have minion advantage. There's no way we win this battle. So I tried to use my affliction to get a bit of HP back and I tried to run away, but the Belica is way too long range for me to actually manage to run away. However, bearing in mind, I managed to get 4 kills before I died, so it's not the biggest issue, I guess. Now, as Grux, for pathing specifically, I suggest going to your red buff, into your full clearing your red buff, or taking one camp and going for a gank. So you either want to gank at level 2 or level 3. This is because you always get your pull at level 2 and you get your dash and knock up at level 3. This is after your level 3 is when you're in prime positioning or prime place for ganks. Now, I chose to leave my blue side for a decent amount of time purely because I was like, I just wanted to stay between mid lane and right lane because I thought that they were the enemy threats. This means that I thought that they are the only two people that can carry the game late game because I knew my my duo lane was Like, I've heard of my dual lane and the enemy dual lane before, and I knew that my dual lane was a bit better. So I wanted to bear in mind that and keep going for the enemy Grux. And I see the enemy Grux does a very stupid dash here, and he tries to go in for the Kalari. He misses his dash, so at this point he doesn't have a dash. And he still has his grab, but I don't know why he hasn't tried to maneuver us with it. Overall, I just end up killing him and taking that. Oh, he gets the kill, but I end up taking some of the farm as tax. Yeah, I call it tax. It's just like a good jungler comes and helps you. You should give him some sort of farm. But yeah, at this point, I've unlocked 3 levels into my right click, because right click is always prioritized, in my opinion, over your E and your Q. Overall, you prioritize your alt, then your right click, then your Q, then your E. Whenever you don't see a ganking opportunity as Grux, there's no point going in for any like kills, obviously, because with Grux it's like he can get a long range in. He can kill he can basically just get a lot of people down if they're out of position, but if they're like hiding near their tower, etc., it's not the easiest. So at this point, I decide it's the best chance to start taking my blue side and focus the enemy duo lane, because at this point the Grux is no longer a threat. I've killed him like 3 times. I end up taking this camp because I know my Twin Blast is under his tower and they shouldn't be able to dive him because Steel is not level 60 right now. So at this point, I've taken my blue buff and I intend to go for a full clear if they don't go all in. If they go all in, then I probably will end up helping the Twin Blast. However, I see that they're starting to run away, so I just take my next camp. As Grux, the build that I would recommend is going for just pure tank. Because if you guys have read his ability notes, none of his right click, his Q, and his alt, I believe, none of them do critical strikes. So if you build him with crit, it's not going to work, because original Grux from Paragon days used to be all based on using his crit and his attack speed to destroy people with his alt. His combo was so broken that you could one-shot people with his right click, but that was because the right click used to have some sort of critical strikes. However, now it doesn't have any sort of critical strikes. Now, what I would recommend is going T first as your first big power spike, purely because it's just very, very good to have, and it's way more of a damage dealer than Baalarm is. So you want to go wraps into T fist, and from there you can build Baalarm, and maybe after that Baalarm point you can choose to go whether you want to go crossbow, which is a good item because you have attack speed and that helps you proc your passive stacks. If you guys don't know what his passive stacks are, his passive stacks are basically he applies a stack on anyone that he uses an ability on, and the stack lasts for 6 seconds, I believe, and every time you hit someone with a stack, it does a bit more damage and it does a bit more bleed, I believe. And obviously if you have more attack speed, you can get those basic attacks off faster. Now over here, I realized that this ward over here that the Kalari has placed was not a sentry ward, so I used my Rad Poise, and therefore I realized that this Grux knows that I'm here. So what I think I end up doing is going for the ward. Oh, never mind. Guess not. Oh, yeah, Grux goes all in on my Kalari, so I have to try and pull him away from him. I think Kalari was fine. He ended up surviving. Yeah, Kalari ended up surviving. I was pretty much full HP. I covered his lane, which is a new term that I want to start using, and I've heard people in the League of Legends community use it quite a lot and other MOBAs. So covering is basically just taking over someone's lane and making sure the enemy laner doesn't get any farm. Now what I noticed here is not only this was a huge power spike area purely because there's 10 minions in the lane and taking damage from tower, which means the enemy Grux has missed out on not only 2 waves worth of minions, but I take half of his tower at this point. My third wave comes in, and his wave is nowhere to be seen. So at this point, I know 100% that I'm going to take this tower. So I keep going for this tower because I know the enemy mid laners is currently mid lane, the enemy Decker is mid lane, and no one else is really a threat to me. So what I decide to do here is try to actually go for the kill, because if I can kill him, I can pretty much take a tier 2. I think I ended up almost losing this, but luckily he wasted his grab a bit too early, and he wasted his passive stacks. So at this point I realized I should probably back, but the wave is so big and we have visibility of Bellica, which is the only big threat. It's Steel isn't really a threat. So I carried on deciding to go and push this wave into tower so he can't get the farm, because if I didn't push this wave in, the enemy Grux would end up getting this farm. The enemy Decker does end up showing up, but she's not really a threat. I do try to bait her into my Kallari over here, but she ends up backing. But yeah, from here I just back and I finish my T. I think I finished my T-Fist. But yeah, at this point I'm at a very, very huge advantage because I've got a finished first item and boots, and I'm pretty sure the enemy Steel just hit something like level 6 or level 7, and he's barely got like anything. The enemy Grux has basically been nerfed to the ground because he cannot go against my Kallari at this point. The enemy Bellica is probably the biggest threat in their enemy team right now, alongside maybe their Sparrow. So I believe I ended up starting to go for the next threats. So I know I tried to go for the Bellica here, but actually, yeah, I think I ended up getting the kill, I believe. But yeah, so at this point, I realized the only two threats in the enemy team are the Bellica and the enemy Sparrow. But because I've seen that my ADC is doing better than the enemy Sparrow, I decide to like stay more towards the mid lane and keep Bellica under nerf. I try to wait for her over here, making sure that she doesn't come back and my mid lane is kind of safe. She does end up coming back, but she ends up going through their tower. So at this point, I decided to try and maybe get a deep ward or even go for a kill on the Grux on right side, because I know I saw Steel on the left side and the enemy Grux is on his, he's pretty alone. The enemy Bellica does end up going missing over here, and the Grux does come for me over here because I believe he ended up wanting to go for the farm. I ended up managing to use the Q perfectly while he was using his dash, and that basically secured the kill for me perfectly. A good tip when you're versing a Grux is that you should always try to kite them, because their grab is obviously a cone. So it's like if you're melee range against the Grux, you can pretty much like you can dodge their Q if you're like dashing around them. Over here, I tried to end up like doing something against this Bellica, but the E gets cancelled out by the buff, so I end up just counter jungling and then trying to retreat, because I end up getting a kill and a retreat. And I noticed the enemy Steel is still level 4 at this point, so either he's gone AFK or he's just very, very behind on farm, and he's just been counter jungled to the ground. But yeah, so the only threat at this point that I can notice as Grux is the enemy Sparrow, so I start thinking that maybe I need to go for the Sparrow more. Over here, I noticed that the Steel does come back, so I might need to help my team. He's still only level 5. I'm basically double levels against him if I get like 1 or 2 more minions. My Bellica survives over here, luckily, and I think I end up trying to do something to this Steel, but the damage is just insane. Like, wow. Kallari does end up coming in, but we end up not getting this kill, I believe. He had a little bit of, bleed, so that was pretty effective. But yeah, so at this point, I'm believing that the only threat in the enemy team, because Steel has been nerfed to the ground, Grux has been nerfed to the ground, Bellica is somewhat of a threat, and Sparrow is basically being countered by my Twin Blast. So Bellica and Sparrow are the only two that I believe I need to go for. Now over here, I realized that as Grux, the best things that you can do is just try to like always go for a gank, because your grab 9 times out of 10 makes sure that you're going to either get a gank or an insanely good wave. Now, talking about combos for Grux, the best combos that I can say for Grux is you have to bear in mind for your passive stacks. So your passive stacks stack after you've used a ability. So once you've used an ability, you basically want to use an auto attack, or the stacks do stack up. So you can use like 2 abilities, then use 2 2 of your auto attacks to maximize the damage. So your normal wave clear and your like overall like the clearing and damage dealing ability would be your combo would be to maximizing your right click and your Q, and then using Q into right click after you've grabbed everything in one point and then right clicked everything. This does your most amount of damage. It's the best like quick ability without using your ult and without using your dash. Your biggest damage dealing ability in my opinion would be Q right click alt, E right click auto. So repeating that once again, after using 2 abilities, I recommend using 2 auto attacks. So over here, obviously, it was a pretty easy kill for the Sparrow, so I just kept on going for her. At this point, I haven't lost any HP, so I'm like, we could go in, but at the same time, I did want to try and kill the Bellica, so I did try to focus her. However, at this point, I should have just focused the other team, the other enemies. I did try to grab her, nothing really worked, but over here, not bad. We got a 2 for 1, was worth. Now, once again, talking about his combo. his best combo that I've probably seen with him is if you use your Q right click, so your grab into your cleave. At this point, you have 2 stacks ready. So now, what you can choose to do is use your double auto attacks. So you've procced both your first 2 passive stacks that you've made with your abilities Q and your right click. Once you've used those, so Q, right click, auto, then you want to alt, right click, E to dash into them, and then auto again. The E is also, the E can be like put into whichever place you want. The E isn't necessary, but I feel like you should always alt after using your Q right click auto, because after that point, your alt also gives you some passive stacks. So it's like if you already have 2 passive stacks and then you abuse all of them and you use all of them, after that you use your alt and it gives you those passive stacks back. So you can just right click, because right click only has like a 3 or 4 second cooldown. You right click and then you just auto again, and you basically just end up like getting a lot of fucking damage to the enemy. Now over here, as you guys can see, I have started to babysit left lane because I think the Sparrow needs to be nerfed a little bit. After 2 kills, now I decided you can probably go for Raps or counter jungle. The smartest choice was to go for Raps because we can't see anyone on the map other than the Decker. So Steel, Bellica, and Grux are basically just unknown. At this point, I've seen Bellica and Grux. I just saw them on right lane, so I'm like, this is an easy Raptor. From this point, I decided I maybe can possibly counter jungle or even go in for a mid lane push. The main thing I wanted to see was if Steel was still AFK or not, and over here, as you guys can see, it was the easiest flipping red buff I could have gone in my life. So the good thing about Grux is that if you get CC'd while you're doing your grab, you don't actually end up losing your grab. So as you guys can see here, I still had my grab despite like being dashed away by Steel's Q. So over here, I did say to my team that I'm gonna go all in. We can try to go all in on this, and she almost ended up dying, but I don't think she actually did. Oh wait, no, she did. I think Decker killed her. Yeah. Overall, was very good, and they ended up surrendering. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy. That was my guide to playing Grux. If you guys do have any questions, make sure you comment them down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you like. If you enjoyed this series, which is gonna continue, I'm gonna start with all the jungle people, and I'm gonna probably go into supports, ADCs, mid lanes after that. But start with the jungle. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe down below if you're new, and peace.